Welcome guys back to another episode of Arsenal Transfer News Daily. It is January the 1st. The transfer window is finally open and we finally found the password to our YouTube account and we are finally back to start uploading some videos in this January transfer window. And what a season it has been so far for Arsenal. Top of the league, 7 points clear. Who would have actually thought it? Just to give a moment to reflect on how good of a season it has been. Back to front, we've been exceptional. 43 points in the Premier League after 16 games, I believe it has been already. And Arsenal are purring. We're going strong, going far. And hopefully this can continue. Long may it continue. However, if we are to mount a title challenge, if we are to make it seem like we are serious, we must keep going. And for that, we need to add talent. We need to add quality to this team. And that man there, Mykhailo Mudryk, if I'm saying it wrong. I think it's Mykhailo Mudryk, it's something like that. And he's the main man we've been linked to. Throughout the end of the summer transfer window during deadline day, we were linked with Mykhailo Mudryk as a winger we were looking at possibly bringing in. It was made clear after we lost out on the likes of Rafinha and Pedro Neto that Mudryk was going to be our main option. And at first I wasn't so sure. I kind of felt like he's just one of those kids. He just has a bit of pace. He's a bit fast. He's got a fancy name. Scored a couple goals in the Champions League, and that's that. But as I looked more into someone like Mykhailo Mudryk, I figured he's a player that could take us. He could take us forward, and he adds something different. I watched highlights of this player. I'm not going to sit here and say I've watched full games of him. I haven't, and you can only judge off what people say and what people on the highlights you see out there. But what I can gather, looks like a quality player. A lot of pace, explosion, dribbling. He clocked the fastest speed in the Champions League, and he has scored those 2 goals, which by the way are some class goals. Did very well against RB Leipzig and Celtic in the Champions League. Obviously Shakhtar are now out. Regarding a possible transfer, now this is where it gets a bit tricky, because obviously Arsenal in an ideal scenario would like the player to be signed very quickly, and why wouldn't Arsenal want to? Because they need to strengthen. They've got big games coming up in January. We've got Newcastle coming up, Manchester United, Spurs, Man City on the horizon as well, and FA Cup and the Europa League coming up. So you'd want Mudryk to be signed and settled in quickly into life at the Emirates. But Shakhtar look like they're haggling with the fee. Now, the directors openly spoke out about the interest and says that they would require a bid close to what Manchester City paid for Jack Grealish and what Manchester United paid for Anthony. That would be in the ballpark of 80 to 100 million pounds. Now, it seems pretty obvious that Arsenal will not pay that sort of fee to sign Mudryk, despite their desperation to sign the player and Mikel Arteta really wanting to sign the player. It doesn't seem like we're willing to pay that kind of money to sign Mykhailo Mudryk. And it seems like the sort of money we'd be looking to do a deal with would be closer to the £60 million mark. Now, we've made one official bid so far, which was confirmed by Fabrizio Romano, and that first bid was 40 million euros plus 20 million euros in add-ons. Now, how realistic those add-ons were, I'm not 100% sure, but 40 million euros was the base fee, and obviously you'd think that would be structured in a way that would benefit Arsenal as well. So the full package was 60 million euros. It's been turned down by Shakhtar Donetsk, and they want closer to maybe what they're openly, publicly suggesting 100 million euros, which is the benchmark they are setting. Now, it seems like Arsenal will come back in again. Now, how much they will come back in by, it remains to be unseen. But I think the key to doing this deal will be the structure, because they want a ballparking close to between 80 to 100 million. It seems like a deal of 60 million euros maybe guaranteed, maybe 20 to 30 added on could do the deal. There is an expectation that Shakhtar will do a deal less than what they've publicly displayed, which seems realistic as well, because will they really get that kind of money? Well, it makes sense for Shakhtar to say they want that kind of money because, Ajax have sold their star boy for 80 million, and Aston Villa obviously sold Jack Grealish for so similar amount. And Mudryk he's been recognised widely throughout Europe, but he hasn't been linked with any other clubs really, except from Arsenal. Arsenal's been the main leading club in the race to sign Mudryk. There were some reports that maybe Chelsea would be into it, but it seems like they're more focused on other targets, primarily like Enzo Fernandez, Beno Badiashile, and they've already signed David Fofana. So it seems like Arsenal is the main target that Mudryk would want to go to. And from his side, If you follow anything on Instagram or social media or Twitter, you would know he's been bending over backwards to sign for Arsenal. He is very eager, it seems like, from his Instagram stories. From what I've seen, pretty much watching all the games. There's one after the Brighton game where he was him watching a picture of the Brighton game, and then he said it was like a picture of De Zerbi and Arteta, and he said top coaches, two top coaches or something like that. Obviously, De Zerbi used to coach at Shakhtar with Mudryk, and obviously Arteta, who's wants to sign him. So it seems like the player is really eager to force the move. He's not been keeping that lightly, and he's also been posting pictures of his valuation. He's done interviews with Zinchenko's wife, who's a journalist. It seems like he really wants to come to Arsenal, and it seems pretty obvious that we are trying to sign him as well. Arteta would refuse to comment in the pre-match build-up to the Brighton game. Now, how long will this deal take? I think it will take a while, if I'm being personally honest. Shakhtar seem like they're quite difficult to deal with, and they won't give up the player quickly. It seems like they probably will sell him. I think we will get him in the end. I think we will. But this will be a case of Arsenal not willing to get ripped off, and they want to get the best deal possible for the player. And it seems like Mudryk is also really wanting to come. So that's this whole lay down of the situation with Mykhailo Mudryk, and that's what we know so far. The second player I want to talk about is Joao Felix. If I can bring him up somehow, some way. There we are, Joao Felix. Now, it seems like he's been rumoured with a move away from Atletico de Madrid, and many clubs have been rumoured to sign him, notoriously Chelsea, Manchester United and Arsenal, as these are the only clubs that are willing to pay or could match the financial package that would be required to sign Joao Felix. Now, he signed to Atletico Madrid for £120 million. I think Atletico's director said it's one of the biggest decisions we made as a club. And it makes sense. He was around 19 years old, and they signed him for 120 million. That's a lot of money to put out for a player that really hasn't done much in terms of output. Now, whether that is due to the system, obviously there's the argument Simeone's system doesn't allow for players like Joao Felix to thrive. Now, whether he would fit into the system at Arsenal remains to be seen, whether Mikel Arteta does decide to sign him. Now, our deputy striker at the moment, Eddie Nketiah, who is deputising until Gabriel Jesus comes back from a surgery he had to have because of an injury at the World Cup. He scored 2 goals in 2 games, Eddie Nketiah, so maybe a striker may not be top of the priority list, but I think it still should be. I think Felix is an opportunity in the market, because the situation is Atletico Madrid are willing to let him go out on loan, which for me is key, because he's a player that Atletico Madrid would permanently want to get rid of for around 80 million, 90 million mark, and he just isn't worth that kind of money. So I think the best way to do it is to try and test him for a loan. Yes, the loan would be expensive, but when you're in a title race, you need as much help as you can, and he's someone who has done it at a high level. He does play for a top club, and under the right guidance, under the right system, with the right system in place for him to strive, I think he can do very well, because Atletico Madrid did ultimately pay that kind of money for him because they saw the potential he had. You know, you don't spend that kind of money, 120 million, without knowing the kind of player you're going to get. So I think in that respect, Joao Felix is a player I'd like to have. The sort of loan fee you're looking at is going to be extensive, and obviously his contract as well. Atletico Madrid probably would want Arsenal or any other club that signs him to pay the majority of his wages as well. So that is also a sticking point. Is the financial package, even for a loan with an option to buy, even worth it? Will he contribute that much to us? But I think, as I said, we need help in terms of our depth, because if we are going to be in a title race, if we are going to be playing in the Europa League, in the FA Cup, if we're going to try and compete from as many fronts as possibly can and not throw away competitions, then we need to have depth in our squad. Now, we do have Emil Smith-Rowe coming back. Jesus hopefully will be back soon, and he provides us versatility because he can play in the wings. As well as that, we need to sign maybe, I say, 3 players at least. Someone like Mudryk, Felix, and we need a midfielder. For me, someone like Caicedo would be brilliant at Brighton, who's playing at Brighton at the moment. Even someone like Mykhailo, who again is at Brighton, or maybe even someone like Tielemans. But we need maybe a midfielder, a striker, a winger. We need depth in these positions, because if we are going to mount a title charge, we need to be able to, be able to rotate. So that's the news on Joao Felix. As I said, I would probably have him. Next bit of news, William Saliba. Again, a player we're trying to nail down to a contract. We have triggered an extension clause in his contract, which takes him until 2024. It was originally set to run until 2023 because he signed in 2019. Then he went on loan for 3 years and now he's playing this season. So it's an initial 4 year plus an extension year. So he's done 4 years. He's in his fourth year now at Arsenal, even though we've only seen him for one season. And we've triggered an extension clause which takes it to 2024. But we are in talks to try and lock down a longer term deal for William Saliba to stay at Arsenal. Now, it seems like Martinelli and Saka's contracts should be wrapped up very soon. Those look like they're set to be signed. The next one we need to be focusing on is obviously this one, William Saliba. Been shaky the last 2 games, I will tell you that much. But he's a key player for us nonetheless, and he's a player we need to keep. He's been one of the reasons we've been so good this season. He's been exceptional on the whole, and he's someone we need to keep a hold of 100% because big clubs will be after someone like William Saliba. He's a big talent around Europe, did well out at Marseille last season, and he's doing exceptionally with the league leaders Arsenal. So yeah, and that's the news on William Saliba. Obviously, every Arsenal fan would love him to stay as well. So that's it. That's it for today. If people want me back, I'll keep uploading. But yeah, 1st of January, Arsenal transfer news. Arsenal top of the league. The season's back, and Arsenal are back. See you guys in the next one. Bye bye.